Okay, first of all, I'm Chozu. I'm a Diamond 1 ADC player and Ezreal main. And I'll be uploading ADC related content on this channel, mostly about Ezreal though. But if you have any video suggestions for me, please let me know in the comments. I will also be answering every questions you guys might have in the comment section below as well. So, many people don't know if they should run Conqueror or Lethal Tempo on Ezreal. I will try to clarify the differences and playstyle between the two keystones, and also tell you in which matchups one keystone can be more useful than the other. Okay, starting off, the pick rates in Korean Challenger are pretty much the same for both keystones. Deft, a Korean pro player, has been running Conqueror in the majority of his games, but he will opt for Lethal Tempo when he is paired with something like a Yuumi support. That is because Ezreal has much worse waveclear than most ADCs already, and if he is paired with a Yuumi, who has basically no waveclear at all, you will want to have Lethal Tempo in those kind of situations to get at least some kind of lane control. Generally, I think that both keystones are very good on Ezreal, but in some matchups you can just utilize one keystone more than the other. However, you should never run something like PTA. I think PTA is kinda dogshit, to be honest. The problem is that you need 3 autos or Qs to proc it, but theoretically, if you're on range to auto attack with Ezreal, you're almost guaranteed to lose the trade anyways, because I don't really know any ADC that Ezreal can actually out-trade when he's in their auto attack range. You will be most of the times playing around your range and not auto attacking 3 times. It just seems so fucking troll, but many people actually enjoy it, so you might actually want to give it a try, even though it's probably dog shit. So I've also seen some people asking if Grasp was good on Ezreal, like no meme. They were actually serious, and the only good thing about Grasp on Ezreal is the memes. There are literally no other good points that come to mind when I think about Grasp on Ezreal. Okay, moving on, let's start off with the pros of Conqueror. The first one being the versatility in your build path. With Conqueror you are able to build AP items such as Lune's Echo and the Unleashed Torment. If your team needs AP damage, this can be very useful, while with Lethal Tempo you are pretty much forced to go full AD, as you can utilize your attack speed from the rune with AP items. Another strength of Conqueror is the more consistent and reliable damage, especially in teamfights. If the enemy team has a frontline, you can most of the times just stack up your Conqueror for free on them, and then look for an opportunity to all-in someone else, someone squishier. You will probably have your Conqueror stacked the whole team fight, while with Lethal Tempo, it can sometimes be hard to utilize it because of the short buff window. Now for the disadvantages of Conqueror. The biggest weakness in my opinion of Conqueror is probably on lane, compared to Lethal Tempo at least. You have less all-in power than with Lethal Tempo, as it can sometimes be hard to stack up your Conqueror and keep it stacked, especially if the enemy bot lane has no melee support. The same applies for out of laning phase. If the enemy team has a lot of range carries, which isn't that unlikely in Season 10 to be honest, it can also be very hard to keep your Conqueror stacked, because Ezreal actually gets outranged by most carries if it's not for his Mystic Shot, and you definitely will need your auto attacks to keep it stacked up, as it is basically impossible to keep it stacked with just your Q and E. You should also note that your W only won't apply Conqueror stacks, as it deals no damage on its own, but it will still give you extra stacks if you can activate it. So because of that reason, I would usually prefer Lethal Tempo against range comps. Right, the last downside to Conqueror is that it doesn't help Ezreal out with his bad wave clear, while Lethal Tempo does a lot actually. So if your support can help you wave clear, which most supports don't do anyway, you will usually concede a lot of lane control as a result. So if you're planning to play aggressive all game and keep your lane pushed, that's probably more suited for your playstyle. That's pretty much all for Conqueror though. If you have any questions about the arguments I made, just let me know, and I will try to answer them as best as I can. Moving on with the strengths of Lethal Tempo. That keystone has definitely stronger all-in potential and higher DPS, especially in laning phase. Let's say for example your support is something like a Thresh, Blitzcrank or even a Nami, and they somehow land a hook or bubble once every 20 games. You can easily follow up with your Q or auto and proc Lethal Tempo, which will most of the time result in a winning fight, because if you attack someone while your Lethal Tempo proc is active, duration actually increases by another 3 seconds, so most of the times you should win that all in. And in general, if you are playing with a catch support and you catch but you can't all in because you are too weak, which is actually most of the times the case with Ezreal because most people will go first item tier. The game is pretty much doomed, your support will probably mental boom, and that just shouldn't happen in my opinion. Like, you're already playing around your win con, and your win condition is basically there, but you still can't win, so how are you ever gonna win, you know? And that is also a major reason why most pro players will go for an early pickaxe instead of a tier or a sheen when going lethal tempo. Obviously, you'll have to utilize your auto attacks more and not just stay behind and queue. It's essentially a more traditional ADC playstyle. Okay, another big advantage of lethal tempo is the more wave clear and ultimately more lane control. You can proc your lethal tempo actually very easy on Ezreal. You can just queue the enemy in lane and then just spam auto attacks on minions in order to get a wave advantage and maybe even a push. Just make sure that you can't die to ganks when you're pushing, because then it's not worth pushing. Alright, moving on to the last strength of lethal tempo, the stronger dueling potential. I think Conqueror is okay too for dueling, but not nearly as good as lethal tempo. Since with lethal tempo, as I already said, you are playing a more traditional ADC playstyle. And let's say, for example, you all in illusion with Conqueror, it's a 1v1, and you're most likely not gonna be able to stack up your Conqueror fully in that fight and probably just lose it. While with lethal tempo, you are pretty much guaranteed to get good utility out of your keystone, especially in a 1v1. That's just because you need to damage Lucian only once to proc it, and you can go from there. Okay, that was it for the strengths. Now for the weaknesses. The first one is the smaller build path options, and I don't actually like Iceborne Gauntlet paired with lethal tempo, just because I think Triforce is much better and also synergizes better than Gauntlet, as it gives you attack damage and attack speed, while Gauntlet only gives you mana and armor, which doesn't really enhance your auto attack damage. You also can ever build AP with lethal tempo for similar reasons. Ability power won't synergize with your auto attack damage in any way, but if your team already has enough AP damage, it doesn't really matter since AD Ezreal is much stronger than AP Ezreal anyway. Okay, the last downside of lethal tempo is the less consistency due to the short duration of the buff. I think it can sometimes be hard to utilize the buff, especially in teamfights, because there can definitely be times where you get zoned out and are just not in a position to auto attack. It's also harder mechanically to kite with lethal tempo because of the big attack speed buff you get. With most ADCs, you are just kiting all game and you will eventually get used to your attack speed. While with Ezreal, your attack speed is changing literally every second due to his passive. And combined with lethal tempo, it can be pretty hard to kite perfectly, almost impossible in some cases. So sometimes when lethal tempo procs, and I don't exactly need to kite, I will just stand still and auto attack, because I don't want to cancel those fast as fuck auto attacks. That was pretty much all for LT. Now to the summary, I will go lethal tempo when I have a hook cash support for more all-in power and kill pressure in lane. I will also go lethal tempo when I need wave clear, because my support is AFKing the lane. That's actually pretty often the case. When I want to play a more traditional ADC playstyle. When I know that I can auto attack safely, when I know that the enemy champions can't just jump on me and kill me when I'm in auto attack range. When enemy has no tanks and a lot of range carries, since Conqueror can be very hard to stack up in those kind of matchups. Like, you're never gonna stack up Conqueror against Vel'Koz, you know? I will go Conqueror when I know that I will build Iceborne Gauntlet, then most of the times I will probably go for Conqueror instead of lethal tempo. When I want to play more poke oriented, so I can build something like Ludens, Iceborne, and even Liandry's. Because I know I'm not the main carry, let's say you have, I don't know, already insane damage, so sometimes it's pretty good to go just the supporting Ezreal role, just CC for your team, get some utility, that's completely fine too. When enemy team has something like Nautilus or Shen who will let you stack up Conqueror for free, like an easy to kite frontline, that you can just AFK stack on, basically. And also when I'm considering building AP in general, because our team lacks AP, just to leave that path open, I will then go for Conqueror. Because Conqueror is actually pretty good with Triforce too, and it's probably the better rune in general for Ezreal. But that's pretty much it for the video. If you have any questions left, just ask me in the comments, and